Brilliant. Good morning, everyone. We'll just give it 30 more seconds for people to join. Thank you for joining us this morning. Perfect. Let's get underway. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning, and welcome to part 22 in the Tax Automation and Innovation series of webinars. Today we're focusing on global tax operations. Just before we start, a few points of housekeeping. So firstly, this session is going to be recorded. Secondly, if you have any questions, please raise them through the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. So please don't put those in the chat. There is a specified Q&A function, so please type your questions in there and we'll address them as we go through or at the end. There will be a deeper dive follow-up, so we'll send out invites afterwards. Those will follow. So if you want to see a little bit more, click on the link in those follow-ups and we'll get those arranged. And finally, we will finish at 10:30 on the dot, so we aren't going to overrun at all. So the purpose of these webinars are to walk you through the art of the possible in terms of the tax technology world. We give you insights into some of the leading platforms out there, as well as some emerging platforms. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Stevie Fruninx from Loctax. Many of you will recognize Stevie from LinkedIn. Stevie is very active on LinkedIn, posting some very good memes around some of the challenges we face in tax teams. So if you don't follow him, I do recommend following him. It's very amusing, and he posts some very engaging polls as well. For those of the regular viewers to this series, you will notice that Ian has not had a miraculous facelift. No, Ian is traveling today, so I am deputising for him. I'm Scott Mills. I'm one of the tax directors in the team. Delighted to walk you through this session today before I hand over to Stevie. So just before I hand over, it's worth just going over in terms of the history really of tax governance and controls tools. So previously, these were used quite heavily in practice. So this was used by firms such as BDO to provide workflow updates in terms of whether things had been submitted or not to you within tax teams. Nowadays, there are a whole host of tools. They serve many different purposes. Some will have a compliance focus, keeping you on top of compliance processes. Others will offer you analytics, so you'll be able to see what's going on in your organization, and that can have some wide-ranging impacts on firms. Firstly, we're looking at eradicating errors, reducing penalties on your companies. And secondly, it can really help strategically for you. So this can help you in terms of driving strategy. You can identify trends, identify areas for savings, and ultimately help you with better cash flow management in your organizations. So with that, I'm going to hand over now to Stevie, who will walk you through his superb Loctax solution. So over to you, Stevie.
Thank you, Scott, for the introduction, and welcome. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to share my screen and show you very briefly one slide which conceptually basically explains who we are. And then from there, go to the demo itself. I'll try it to limit it to 20 minutes so that there is sufficient room for Q&A by the end of this session. If you have questions, shout out. Maybe Scott, also to you, interrupt me if need be, because I'm not sure whether I will see them all coming in, but happy to take questions. So what is Loctax? We are a tax control center where in the core of our platform, to what you already referred to, we have workflow engines, which basically help you to orchestrate all of the work around your different tax operations, all your processes. Also ensure that you have the full audit trails, that you can operationalize your processes, install controls. So we have this in a very cutting edge fashion for all of the different tax verticals, which means corporate income tax, indirect tax, transfer pricing documentation, withholding tax, call them the evergreens. But we can also offer this for your industry-specific taxes, plastic tax, environmental taxes, property taxes, whatever is relevant for you. So those workflow engines are there. I'll show them in the demo in a minute. And then these engines, they are deeply integrated with a structured repository, call it a tax data lake, where all of your tax data and documents will end up. We have AI agents which facilitate the capturing of the data and documents and put them away in the repository. I'll also come back to that. But what is the beauty there? Once you have it in the repository, you can unlock intelligence from the data. Trend analysis, outlier analysis, reports, dashboards, the obvious things. But obviously, also bear in mind that because of the fact that we bring together all the different tax obligations, all of the verticals, you also can do then consistency checks across direct tax and indirect tax with your transfer pricing in your stat accounts. Basically, the stuff that the tax authorities are already doing for you because they have all your e-filings and they do those checks. And yes, they also apply AI. So we want to make sure that you have the same on your end. On top of that, so this is the core engines, which you can then set up for all of the different tax obligations you have. We have then specific functionalities around controversy management, risk management, project management. It will be way too much to show today. I'll focus on the core, but I also want to focus a bit of my time on the AI agents, which we are building on top of that, because it's such a hot topic. And the beauty is that our platform is AI native. What does that mean? Because of the structured nature of our repository, because of the cutting edge, let's say, nature of the workflows, AI can now unlock a lot of value on top of that. And I'll show you a couple of use cases just to inspire you what the possibilities are of AI in general for tax, but also what you can expect in our platform now and then obviously for the future, because we are just getting started. We are a startup that is 5 years in, which is pretty new still, but have a beautiful future ahead of us. So with this, I'm going to quickly stop sharing and then go to the demo itself. Voila. There we go. So if all goes well, you see here my screen. This is basically our live product. It's a SaaS or cloud product. Obviously, does not need a lot of explanation. It's what you expect these days. It's with Effective International Pied Piper. And as I said, I want to focus first on the power of workflows, where workflows, you will have them running for all of the different tax operations you have. So you see here corporate tax compliance, you might see indirect tax compliance, payroll tax, as I said, plastic taxes, whatever is relevant for you. What does such a workflow do and what does it look like? Well, if we go to a workflow, for example, here I have one for the UK, you see that this workflow provides you real-time transparency in where am I in the process in terms of, in this case, the filing of my 2024 corporate income tax returns. The beauty is that this is an advisor agnostic platform, which means that you are in control to work with your favorite advisors for all of the different tax jobs in all of the different regions you have, which also means that you can diversify where all of our users, they are working with their advisors on this platform, where typically you have, obviously, depending on your tax operating model, you have organizations where they want to put as much as possible with one advisor, but at the flip side, you have equally amount of organizations where they diversify all the time. This is just to make sure that you have that optionality and that you can work with the best advisor in the best region, where the idea is you have that real-time transparency, where am I in the process? And then I can click through and I can see that now for this specific UK workflow, I have for all of my UK entities a structured way of working. I have here, for example, a first task, which is around obtaining of financial and accounting information. Another task can be about SAO review, where you have a full checklist and whatnot. The idea being that this is something which is super easy to customize for all of your countries. And we are called a control center, but we can equally be called a tax control framework, or we also tick all of the boxes for the German tax compliance management system. That is why we are a bit generic in our naming. We can be set up for all of the different requirements. In the UK, as you can see here, you have the SAO, but this can be very easily tweaked because we want to operate at a global level so that you can do this for all of your countries and regions. And the idea is then that the engine automatically distributes all of the work to the right stakeholders at the right moment in time. It's populating calendars, so calendars where you can then see for all of the specific tax verticals what is coming up this week, this month, this quarter, where you can then always click through. There is always interactivity. You go to the tasks, and the workflow engine is distributing the work by means of emails. So it's just sending you an email, hey, local finance person in country X. You need to work on the data gathering. The person gets the email, clicks the link, gets the task, does whatever is expected, and then leaves again. And you have the full-time transparency. Has it been done? But also the audit trail. Be careful or mindful. The audit trail is really your insurance for controversy down the road, right? So you want to make sure that you double down on that audit trail. More and more also, I mean, HMRC is a nice example, but you have it in other countries as well. Tax authorities, they are more interested in your processes and in your governance and controls than in the actual returns and the individual values in the returns. So the more you are in control and you can demonstrate all of that, the better your relationship and risk rating will be. And that is also the gist of cooperative compliance in most countries. Huh? So you see then calendars where everything comes together. And those workflows, they will be running. They will be running for indirect tax, where you then have, let's see here, an indirect tax compliance workflow, where obviously you have different periodicities, different types of tasks. And the idea is that they are all running. They run in the background, they distribute the work, they make sure that deadlines are being respected. We have for the deadlines, by the way, a partnership with IBFD, so we ingest deadlines from IBFD. And the beauty is that when all of the work is getting done, you have in your mini dashboard, as you could see here, always an overview of what the progress is. But in our platform, this is just the beginning. So those workflows, they run in parallel next to each other, but they are linked to a structured repository, a repository where all the data comes together. And so if I go to that repository, we have here an interactive org chart, which is a bit the gateway to the underlying data, where I can see here all of my entities, their tax classifications. I can play with it. I can, for example, say, give me my VAT groupings. I can show only the dormant entities or the ones which have tax losses and whatnot. What I do want to show you here is if I click on an entity, I go to an entity page, and in that entity page, I see all of the obligations which are attached to this entity. So this is a UK entity. It is subject to corporate tax. It has TP documentation requirements, indirect tax, plastic tax, property tax. But the beauty is that this is all linked to the workflows. So whenever the workflow is capturing data and documents like assessment notice, the return itself, the advisor memo, inputs, it will populate tabs which look like this, where in this tab you have an opinionated data model, in this case for corporate tax. We are looking at one specific year, and you see your payment information, you see your tax loss information, you can track ETR, whatever you want. If I go obviously to another tax obligation, to indirect tax here, it has monthly returns and the data points which I want to track. And the beauty here is you decide what you want to track. If this is way too detailed, you can forget about everything which is redundant and you focus on your KPIs. You track them in your control center. Why do you want to track them? Because you want to unlock intel from the data. You get like mini dashboards like this, but obviously what is more important is reports. You can click with one, click on the button here, you get a report on your corporate tax payments for a specific year, and you get everything nicely organized. You can now slice and dice this, you can play with it, you can export it for the last 3 years, and your CFO will be happy because you have the data readiness. It's always there to answer questions. Secondly, you can then unlock visual intelligence. You, for example, here, if we stay in the corporate tax domain, you have your dashboards, which are telling you, like, not only for the UK, but for my entire group, how am I doing for 24? Everything looks good. However, here we dropped the ball and here as well. And then you can go into the root cause and then you see, for example, oh, in this country, we had so many filings, but indeed we missed one filing. And now we can drill down into the underlying root cause and make sure that this is not going to happen again in the future. And this is where the workflows basically allow you to connect all of the stakeholders in the process, to automate all of the work, the tasks which are being distributed, deadlines being managed. Do you get the transparency where you are in the process? You have the audit trail, but you also capture the data, the documents, and they populate your repository. Now, the first AI agent which we have built is meant to facilitate that data and document capturing, and it's called an intelligent document processing, where based on your platform, you have an email address. So in this case, this would be piedpiper@loctax.com. And as part of your process, your workflow, you can just forward documents to the to the platform, and the platform will do an automated document classification and data point extraction. Say, for example, indirect tax, monthly filings, you have 400 legal entities, a lot of filings, right? You want to make sure that you are in control, that you can always track down to the individual returns, the values in the returns, and unlock intel from it. So what's happening as part of your process, you tell your local stakeholders, can be even your advisor, send a return once filed to pipepiper@loctax.com. It gets done and it comes in, as you can see here, in such a fashion where this is the VAT return for a country which or a language which I guess most of you won't master. So that's the idea. It's in Dutch. You don't know what this is about. It comes in and you see here that on the sidebar, the platform is doing the automated classification and data point extraction. You see it's for this entity, this registration number. These are the data points which are extracted. And I have the audit trail. I can click through. It all ends up like this in my repository. It's automatically populating the right tab. And then obviously I can pull reports and I have dashboards on top of it. It's one AI agent, which we already have, and we configure it based on your needs. We have one of the largest private equity players as a customer where they use it for assessment notice, automated reading and data point extraction. We have other players that use it for property tax or one or the other industry specific tax. So we have an LLM which can be trained, and then the AI agent helps to extract data points and put them in the repository. On top of that, we have another AI agent which we are now releasing this quarter, which is around inbox management. What does that mean? We have in the platform an inbox, and that inbox can basically deal with incoming questions from stakeholders. So you have an inbox where questions come in, tax questions will then be, in this case, it's Huli@loctax.com, emails come in. You can build an automation on top of such an inbox. How does it work? You can say, look, if an email comes in and it is about corporate tax, I want the AI agent to screen the email, to check whether there is a deadline in the email, to assign it to the right responsible, for example, my person who is looking after corporate tax in Spain, and link it to the right entity. How does that work? We give instructions here. We say, okay, the AI agent, this is what you need to do. And we are going to build a logic. The first thing the AI agent needs to do is determine what the email is about. It needs to search whether it is about corporate tax, determine what entities are involved, and if that's true, create a task, assign the task to the right person in my organization, can also be an external advisor, and assign the right deadline to it. What does that look like? If we go to an example, we have set up this automation around corporate tax. This can be about everything. Yeah? So think about, let your imagination go wild, how those automations can work. But take an example of HMRC sending you an email. Hey, we have this question for you. It comes from HMRC. The AI agent, as you can see here, has created a task where it has screened this incoming question and has assigned it to the right responsible, linked it to the right entity, and created the right deadline for this task. You have 30 days to answer. So with this, basically, this is a huge productivity hack because now you can very easily deal with incoming requests from the business, from tax authorities, and they will be assigned to the right stakeholders, but in a controlled environment. Because you want to have this in one central platform, because you also want to have the audit trail. And you want to make sure that from here you can convert it into a workflow, you can set up a project for it. But you also want to make sure that if 3 years down the road somebody is questioning what has happened, that you have all of that you have that full end-to-end audit trail. So this is another AI agent which we are further developing, where we even take this one step further, where incoming questions can also be technically analyzed. So here is a question from the business asking like, hey, we are going to distribute this. And the beauty here is we have in the platform all of the data of your entities. So we know the names of your entities. We know the cap table if you want. So the shareholders, all of that. So you can here, based on the countries which are mentioned in the email, you can say, check which are my entities in those countries. And the AI agent will go into your structured repository, pull up the information and show it here. And now you can specify in Huli Italy Investments is distributing the dividend. And now if I type this in, the AI agent will basically make sure that the cap table of that entity is being shown. Some other information comes up, and we can even now also query technical information which comes from IBFD. So I can say like, please help me with the tax implications in Italy and Spain for this dividend. I ask it, and then it will query the IBFD database. It will tell whether there is a treaty, whether there is withholding tax, what the participation exemption looks like. Long story short, super efficient, but it is blending in your company-specific data, blending it with regulatory data, and doing it in a central platform where from the platform you can then convert it into a memo, write a memo, have it signed off by your advisor, convert it into tasks like, okay, now we need to execute on it, even a workflow or a project all in one platform. And that is basically why our control center is so popular or exciting. It brings together all the tax operations in one control center. Yes, you will have an engine for indirect tax, and that's perfectly fine. Keep it because we are not the engine. We are the top layer control center where you want to have flowing into all of the essential outputs. Make sure that you have the transparency over all the operations and capture the learnings, the intel. Make sure that you can support the business on the back of the data that you have, tax losses available, ETR, controversy that's going on, but also unlock intel on the back of AI and let those AI agents leverage the data and make sure that you get more work done with ideally the same team or even in the future other team sizes. So that's the beauty of the platform and what we are aiming for. I think with this, I want to foresee sufficient time by the end of the demo for questions. So I'm going to hand over back to you, Scott, and see whether questions came in.
Thanks, Stevie. That's great. Yeah, we do have some questions in the chat box. If there are any more questions, please do post them through the Q&A function as well, and we will get to those. The first one we've got here, Stevie, is in terms of operating model, do you envisage this works with an in-source, co-source, or outsource model?
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer is all of them, because we know every multinational has a different tax operating model. It works both for where you fully outsource, because even if you outsource, and more, we see that outsourcing is happening for the reasons, the macroeconomics and whatnot. But you want to keep some control and visibility over what you are outsourcing. Also, you want to keep on building your internal tax memory, right? So you want to make sure that you have all of this in let's say your control. And the idea is here, like even if you fully outsource and your advisor is using their tool, then we can always make sure that one and the other get in sync and that you stay in control of your data and the intel thereof. So we see that equally applied for let's say yeah, everything on the range between fully insourced, fully outsourced, co-sourced. So all of that works. Where the beauty is also if you let's say co-source or if you insource and just work randomly with small advisors in say LATAM because it's so exotic, yeah, that you then again can diversify and easily switch also between advisors.
Brilliant, thank you. Another question here, I think this centers on the analytics reports.
Yeah.
Can they be configured or customized?
Yeah, also a good question. So at this stage, we are a bit in control of the reports, but if you want one or the other report, we release that for you. The beauty is or the discipline which you want to have is that we are a bit in control of what data gets pulled into them, but it's very easy for us to create those reports. So if you want one where plastic tax gets combined with VAT details, it's very easy to set up for us. Now, over time, we want to make sure that our platform gets, yeah, as on the one hand, autonomous as possible, so that it can do as much as possible in the background without users being involved, but also that you can set up your report. So this is one of the things that in the future will be there. At this stage, we do it for you, but over time, probably it will be possible for you to create your reports.
Brilliant, thank you. We've just had one pop through as well. What countries is the use of this restricted to? Does the headquarters and or all users need to be in the UK, or can it be, for example, in the US or Asia?
Yeah, all regions. So we have customers in all regions. The simple explanation to why we can do that is because we are not a calculation engine. So we have all of the deadlines, we have all of the legal entity forms and whatnot, with the variations which you can think of in globally for all of the countries. And we have the customers which are the Fortune 500s in the US, the FTSEs in the UK, but we also have APAC. We have a lot of customers in GCC, continental Europe. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The next question is around I think this popped into my head as well. When you were going through the workflow on the
Yeah.
image scanning,
Yeah.
is that something that end users can configure themselves, or is that something that
That is
is a
something
super
which we are
user?
now building that they can configure it themselves. Yeah. So as we speak, we have configured it for indirect tax already, for corporate tax, for stat accounts, but we will make sure that in the future they can configure it themselves. And because of the AI native nature of our platform, that should be fairly easy. I mean, in other words, we are already building it so that yeah, if for you one or the other type of document is very important based on your industry, financial industry, for example, that you can then configure the LLM so that it can reach those documents and capture data points.
Excellent. We've also got one here. I'm going to guess this is probably around maybe stages of review, but the deadlines that come from the IBFD,
Yeah,
are users able to override those? I'm going to guess that's probably geared with, and please do pop a follow-up question in the Q&A if I've interpreted this wrong. I'm going to guess this is probably to do with review process to allow for
yeah.
sufficient review time.
It's a good question. So we first of all ingest from IBFD the theory so you can consult it. Then for an entity, for example, here, corporate tax, you will see that it has a statutory deadline and you see the IBFD logo. If I go to that deadline and I click on it, I can always override it. So here it says I have pulled it from IBFD and here are the details from IBFD, but I can override it because maybe you got an extension, right? It's very, I mean, I don't know in the UK, but in the Netherlands, for example, it's very common to get an extension. And that extension can be wildly different depending on the agreement you have with the tax inspector. So here, yeah, you can override it manually and then also explain why you have done so. And that's also then building up your audit trail.
Brilliant. Um, no more questions in the Q&A at this point. If there are any last-minute questions, please do pop them in the chat. We've got about 1 minute to answer any further questions. Otherwise, I hope everyone has found this insightful. There will be follow-up email if you want a deeper dive. There will be details in terms of arranging that within that email there. So please do follow that link. But thank you everyone for your time. Stevie, thank you for your fantastic presentation as well. It's been great having you on. And yeah, any questions, please do follow up via those follow-up emails. So thank you again, everyone, for your time and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye bye.